The man you love is dead. They killed him out in the forest, far from home, and they made sure it was ugly. That's all you know right now, that he's gone, and that it was bad. The men who did it are still out there, and this morning they sent you a letter. It isn't an apology, it's a proposal. Their prince wants to marry you. They killed your husband, and now they want his city, his throne, and his widow, all in one neat little move. They're so sure of it that the messengers are already standing in your courtyard, smiling, waiting for you to come out and say yes. Here's what they forgot. You are not a frightened girl waiting to be rescued. You run this country now. You have an army. You have a city full of people who will do anything you ask. You have every right and every weapon to wipe these men off the face of the earth. So the letter's in your hand. The messengers are still smiling out there in the cold. What do you do? Her name was Olga, and the man they killed, the one she's grieving, was her husband, Igor. He was the prince of a young, rough, freezing country that would one day be called Russia, and Olga married him when she was barely more than a teenager. And being married to a prince back then meant one thing above all else. He's never home. Every winter he rode out. That was the job. You took your warriors from village to village across the frozen country, and you collected what the people owed you: furs, honey, silver. Then you came home before the rivers melted. So picture the morning he leaves. Again. It's still dark. The horses are stamping in the snow, breath steaming. He's pulling his furs tight, and she's in the doorway watching him do it, the way she's watched him do it a dozen times. Their little boy is asleep inside, barely 3 years old. And Igor does the thing he always does. He looks back at her. He tells her he'll be home before the ice breaks. And she believes him, because he always is. She watches the horses until she can't see them anymore. Then she goes back inside to their son, and she waits, like she always does. He just doesn't come back this time. Here's what happened out there. Deep in the forests lived one tribe, proud people called the Drevlians. And that winter Igor and his men rode in, took their tribute the way they always did, and turned for home. But on the road back, Igor got greedy. He looked at what he was carrying and decided it wasn't enough, so he sent most of his army on ahead, and he turned around with just a small handful of men and rode back into the forest to squeeze them one more time. The tribe watched him coming, and one of them said the line that settled it. "If a wolf comes among the sheep," he said, "and you don't kill it, it takes the whole flock, one by one." So they killed the wolf, and they wanted it to mean something. So they took him to 2 young birch trees, and they bent them all the way down to the ground, and they tied one of his legs to each one. And then they let go. I'll let you sit with what that does to a body. Then they went quiet and waited to see what the widow back in the city would do. Now, back home, Olga is still waiting by the door. And one day it isn't her husband who rides up out of the snow. It's the survivors. And they don't have to say a word. She can read it on their faces before they're off their horses. The man who promised he'd be home before the ice broke is never coming home. There isn't even a body to bury after what they did to him. She has a 3-year-old asleep in the next room who is going to grow up never once hearing his father's voice. And out in those forests, the men who did it are pouring themselves a drink, celebrating. So pleased with themselves, so sure of it, that they've already decided what comes next. They are going to send her a marriage proposal. So here come the boats. 20 of them. 20 of the tribe's finest men, important men, rowing right up to the city Igor used to rule, strolling in like they own the place. Because in their heads, they do. Their message is simple. We killed your husband. He was a wolf. He had it coming. But don't worry. Our prince is a good man, and he'll have you. Marry him, and all of this becomes one big, happy kingdom. They actually expect her to be grateful. And she doesn't scream. She doesn't cry in front of them. She doesn't throw them out. She smiles. She tells them they're absolutely right. Her husband can't come back from the dead, so what's the use being bitter? In fact, she says, she wants to honor them. Tomorrow, in front of all her people, she'll give them the grandest welcome this city has ever seen. Go back to your boats tonight, she tells them. And tomorrow, when my people come for you, don't let them carry you on horseback. Don't let them walk you in. Make them carry you in your boats, on their shoulders, like kings. The men love this. Carried in like kings? Yes, exactly. Finally, someone gets it. They have no idea they just picked the way they're going to die. So the next morning, Olga keeps her promise. Her people come down to the river, all smiles, and they lift the boats up onto their shoulders. 20 proud men sitting inside, grinning, waving, being paraded up through the city toward her hall. What the men in the boats can't see is what's waiting in the courtyard. A pit. A deep, wide trench dug overnight right where the boats are headed. And the people carry them straight up to the edge, and then they don't set them down. They drop them. Boats, men, and all, down into the pit. And before the men can understand what's happening, before the screaming really starts, Olga steps to the edge and looks down at them. And she leans over. And she asks them whether they're enjoying the honor. Then she gives the order, and the dirt starts coming down. They're still alive when it covers them. That's one. Now the rest of the tribe, back in the forest, has no idea any of this happened. 20 men went to the city. The city went quiet. They figure the wedding is being arranged. So Olga sends a friendly note. "Lovely," she says, "but if I'm going to marry your prince, you can't send me just anyone. Send me your very best men, your noblest, most important men, so I can arrive to your prince with the honor he deserves." And the tribe is flattered. Of course, she wants the best of them. So they send their finest, the cream of the whole people. And these men show up at the city, and Olga is the perfect host. "You've traveled so far," she says. "You must be exhausted. Let me draw you a bath before you come and see me. Wash, get warm, and then we'll talk." And the men think, now this is how royalty treats you. They file into the bathhouse, the doors close behind them, and the warm water starts to run. And Olga has the doors barred from the outside, and she has the whole thing set on fire. There is no door that opens. There is no way out. The best men of an entire people burn to death in that little wooden building, and Olga is already writing her next letter before the smoke clears. That's 2. And she is nowhere near done. For the third one, she goes to them. She sends word ahead. "I'm coming to you," she says. "I want to stand on the very spot where my husband died and mourn him properly. Brew the mead, lots of it. We'll hold a proper funeral feast over his grave, the way it's meant to be done." And the tribe thinks, finally, the grieving widow, coming to make peace. They brew barrels of it. So Olga arrives with just a small group. And it looks real, because part of it is real. She stands over the place her husband died, and she weeps. That part isn't an act. That's the woman from the doorway, still waiting for a man who is never coming back. And then the feast begins, and she pours. She keeps the tribe drinking, cup after cup, hour after hour, until the whole crowd of them is stumbling, slurring, gone. And she stays sharp, stone-cold sober in the middle of it. When they can barely stand, she gives the signal, and her men, who have been waiting and watching the whole time, draw their blades. 5,000 of them die at that feast. 5,000. And she walks through it herself, pushing her men on, telling them not to stop. Then she wipes the mead off the table, gets back on her horse, and rides home to raise a real army. Because there is still one place left, the big one, the city where they killed him. That's 3. The last city is called Iskorosten, and this is the one that matters, because this is where Igor died. The people inside know exactly what's coming, so they shut the gates and dig in. And Olga sits outside those walls for a year. A whole year. She can't get in. They won't come out. And every day she stares at the walls of the city that took her husband, and she cannot reach it. So she changes the game. She sends a message over the walls. "Why are you still starving in there?" she asks. "Every other town has surrendered to me. They're back in their fields, living their lives, paying their little tribute. You're the only ones left. dying of hunger over nothing. Just give up, pay me a tribute, and I'll go home." And the people inside, half-starved, ask the obvious question. They don't trust her. "We'll pay," they say, "but how do we know you're not still here to avenge your husband?" And Olga says, "Oh, I'm past all that. The men in the boats, the feast, that was enough for me. I've had my revenge. I just want a token now. Something tiny so I can tell my people you submitted. Give me 3 pigeons and 3 sparrows from every house, that's all." And the city cannot believe their luck. 3 birds a house? After a year of siege, they get to live for the price of some pigeons? They round them up gladly and hand them over. And Olga takes the birds. And to the leg of every single one, her men tie a little scrap of cloth and a pinch of sulfur. And as the sun goes down, they light them. And they let the birds go. And the birds do the one thing birds always do at nightfall. They fly home. Every pigeon, every sparrow, straight back to the nest it came from. Up under the eaves, into the lofts, into the dry wooden roofs of every single house in the city. All at once. There isn't one house that doesn't burn. There's no putting it out because the whole city catches fire in the same breath. And the people come pouring out through the gates, out of the flames, right into Olga's waiting army. Some she kills. Some she hands out as slaves. The rest she lets live, just enough of them to keep paying her forever. The city where they tore her husband apart is a field of ash. That's 4. That's all of them. She kept her promise to the man in the doorway. And you'd think that's where it ends. The widow got her revenge. Terrifying, total, done. It isn't where it ends. Because the fire goes out, and Olga looks around at this rough, bloody, half-wild country. The country her husband used to ride across every winter, shaking people down for furs. The exact system that got him killed. He died because he came back for more, because there were no rules, no limits, just a strong man grabbing whatever he could reach. And she fixes it. She rides across the whole country herself, the same roads Igor rode, and everywhere she goes, she lays down actual rules. How much each place owes, when, where they bring it. She builds fixed stations across the land so no one ever has to do what Igor did again, ride into a forest alone and squeeze people until they snap. People call it the first real set of laws in that part of the world. The woman who buried men alive becomes the woman who brings the law, and she holds the whole thing together. Her son grows into a warrior who is basically never home, always off fighting somewhere, and the entire time it's Olga running the country. She even defends the capital herself when an army turns up at the gates years later. She loved one man, and they took him. So she took her revenge. And then she took the whole country, and she made it work. And then, near the end of her life, she pulls off one last thing. She travels south to the greatest city in the world at the time, Constantinople. Gold domes, walls that touched the sky, the most powerful empire on earth. And she goes to meet the emperor himself. And the emperor takes one look at her, this sharp, powerful woman from the north, and he wants her. He tells her, more or less, that she's beautiful and clever, and that she should stay and rule beside him as his wife. And Olga, who has just outthought an entire people to death, looks at the most powerful man in the world and thinks, "Sure, let's play." She tells him she's still a pagan, never been baptized, and she'd be honored to become a Christian, truly, but only if he does it himself. Only if the great emperor personally stands as her godfather. And the emperor is flattered. Of course he will. He baptizes her, sponsors her himself, gives her a new Christian name. And then he comes back around to the marriage. And Olga says, "Oh, I'm so sorry, but you just baptized me. You're my godfather now." And everyone knows a godfather can't marry his goddaughter. It's forbidden. You, of all people, know that. And the emperor just looks at her, and he says the only thing left to say. "Olga," he says, "you have outwitted me." She didn't go there for a husband. She went for the one thing that would outlast her. She came home a Christian, the first of her line, building churches in a country that had never had a single one. She died an old woman, in her own bed, with her son weeping over her. And that little boy, who was asleep in the next room the morning his father rode off and never came back, he grew up and refused everything she believed, wouldn't be baptized, laughed it off. But his son, her grandson, the baby she rocked while her own boy was away at war, he grew up, took the seed she planted, and turned the entire country Christian. The whole nation. Everything that became Russia and Ukraine, the faith at the heart of all of it, traces back to one stubborn grandmother who refused to let it die with her. So the church gave her a title. They almost never give it to anyone, and almost never to a woman. They call her equal to the apostles, the same rank as the men who carried the faith across the whole world, a saint, the patron saint of widows. And maybe that lands strange. So go back to the doorway. The dark morning, the steaming horses, the man pulling his furs tight, promising he'll be home before the ice breaks. The young woman standing there with a sleeping boy behind her, believing him, because he always came back. And then they tore him apart and mailed her a wedding invitation. She didn't ask for any of it. She just refused to be the one who lost. She loved a man all the way to the end, and when they took him from her, she made sure every last one of them paid for it. And then she took the country they bled, and she built something out of it that outlived them all. So 1,000 years later, here's the one thing left to decide. Do you remember her as the widow who made an entire people pay for the man they killed, or as the saint who rose out of all that blood and built a nation? Me? I think she earned both. The love and the fire were never two separate things, but that's me. I want to hear it from you. If they took the one person you loved, and you had her army, her throne, and every right to answer for it, tell me you wouldn't have done the same. Let me know down in the comments.